Hi everyone, I'm here with Dave Wilks from the Leicester Tigers Academy. He's the academy manager there, and you probably blush when I say this, but it's definitely the most successful academy in recent times. Some really good players coming out of that, and success on the pitch as well as player development with winning the Academy Cup last couple of years. I think you drew it last year, did you? Or
we like to say retained it.
Okay, that's cool. But we've been working with Dave and the team there for the last few years, and I've been really impressed with what they've had going on. But this has been an unusual year, so I thought we'd get together and talk a lot about what this year has looked like. And it just so happened in the last kind of week we announced our kind of best users, and Leicester were, well, you guys were top. I'll put the stats up as I'm speaking now in the video later, so I don't have to repeat them, but some pretty impressive stats. So thanks very much for joining me, Dave.
That's no problem. It's good to catch up.
And I've just got a few questions for you, so hopefully it won't take too much of your time, because I know you'll be busy wrapping things up, literally as well. I didn't mean that. So just first up, I guess, what has rugby looked like for players in the academy in 2020? What's it looked like? In any games?
No, we unfortunately not. We very nearly got to an internal game this week, and we've just been pipped by COVID at the last hurdle, really, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But no, we've had a sort of steady build. We've been okay. We've had quite a bit of training, and that's built up from August right the way through. Not lots of it, but again, our take straight away was, well, you know, the situation is what it is. What can we do? How can we keep engagement? How can we keep development going? Some of that's been with a bit of a lighter touch on the pitch, and just some, you know, obviously using Coach Logic, using platforms and things to keep the lads engaged and growing and developing off the pitch.
Yeah. So, how have you been engaging the players? Like, I guess more off the pitch, but also guess wanting to then maximise your time on the pitch when you get that opportunity.
Two main avenues I think we've used pretty well. Firstly, from a strength and conditioning side, we've used an app and platform that has been phenomenal, actually, in terms of getting the players training well. They've not done one physical gym session with us this year, but some of the results have been phenomenal. And then the other side is, just keeping them engaged in the game. There's not been a huge amount of rugby accessible on TV or live rugby. They've not been obviously playing and reviewing games, so we've tried to keep them watching rugby and engaged in rugby, using our own footage where necessary, but sometimes actually the training footage isn't that great. For a lot of the season, we've been playing 10v10 games, which you don't really get a lot of good content from. So yeah, we've certainly used we've used Coach Logic a lot to look at the professional games that have been going on, make them accessible, and actually make them trying to change the view of what players are looking for. So that's been really the main way, is sort of educating players through video, sometimes really targeted, and sometimes just getting them to try and view games from a different aspect. It's pretty successful.
So you were I think we were just chatting before, you're talking about reinforcing the way that you guys want to play, the way that you guys want to develop the players, by getting them to look for those types of signs within, you know, international matches or Premiership matches that have been allowed to go. How have you how have you done that? What's the setup look like to get players engaged in that way?
So yeah, that was a project we did a few weeks ago. So because we've got some games coming up in February, we thought we'd better refine what, you know, some sort of game plan or tactics. So as you know, we've got a kind of 20, 25 almost like bits of terminology from what's a line out drive to off the top, you know, inside ball, outside ball, set up off 9, set up off 10. And we just asked the players, different groups of players, to clip. We give them one sort of bit of terminology. They had to clip it out of the England-Wales game. So could they identify it, and could they clip it? So can they see what, you know, everyone's got, you know, similar moves. You know, what's a crossfield kick? Actually, can you identify that in a game, or that terminology in the game? So again, just getting them to sort of almost look a bit tactically at times, a different view of that England-Wales game. If they couldn't find it in the England-Wales game, then could they find it from other footage?
Yeah.
So that's one way we did just, and then it was literally then put all that together, and you got a 4-minute video of our playbook or terminology. We just layered that with some text. So pretty simple way of getting it. But yeah, just engaging them in that. We've also done it from their traits. So, you know, some people call it, you know, an IDP, or might be they want to be a dominant ball carrier. Okay, well, go and clip out. You know, it's more from the Super Rugby and the Rugby Aotearoa, that sort of time of year we were doing that. What you know, go and show me a couple of dominant carriers, and then have you got a couple of dominant carriers from your own clips from maybe last year that you can show us, put that together in a playlist. So, you know, this is your kind of DNA, if you like. So these are things I want to really pride myself on. These are top 3 things that I'm going to be good at, and then maybe a couple of things that they need to improve on. Again, so it's things like line out leadership. So actually really difficult to get a clip of line out leadership. So they're having to look through different camera views and camera angles. So again, just changing the view of what they're viewing all the time. I know really early on, when we first went into lockdown, when was that? March, April time?
End of March, April, yeah.
We because we couldn't really finish our season, so we'd already said we were going to have sessions throughout, basically through to Easter or April time. And so the only rugby that was on then was right at the end of Super Rugby. They were just not the current season. Last season they'd finished. So we set everyone up as a coach. So I think there was, I can't remember how many players, but we picked a couple of teams. And for 4 weeks, they were those coaching teams. So real specialists, so like throwing specialist, attack scrum specialist, defence scrum. You know, you have to really go through the specialisms to give everyone a role. And there were, I can't remember the teams, Sharks and the Brumbies maybe. And so we released the footage. Obviously, they could cheat and watch some of the games online if they needed, but effectively they're not that accessible. Some of those games if those kids haven't got, you know, aren't up at 6 o'clock in the morning watching Sky Sports. So we just went through. They were that specialist. They had to sort of do a review of one game, preview the opposition, and then we finished the season where we did like a live half time. So we kind of put the backgrounds up on Zoom and did actually sort of we released the game kind of an hour before the Zoom, and then they had to be those specialist coaches at half time, sort of live in a game, really just getting them to view some real detail of the game. We did a project with, I think, one of the international games just recently. I know it was the New Zealand Argentina game where Argentina won. Looking at real big picture. So we asked them to identify momentum changes in the game. So we did give them sort of half a game per group, with, you know, a team per group. And how do they identify the key moments of momentum change in the game, which is really good actually. Some really got it, and it actually, they love that. They love that because they said they had to watch it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
Like only 3 or 4 times. But yeah, so certain things like that is really good. So just using footage available, but actually giving them different pictures to watch, different things to view has been really successful.
yeah.
So that's what we've been doing off field, and then sort of almost to occupy their time whilst they're not training. They've had months where, you know, they've not trained with us much, so we've been doing projects like that.
That's class. So it's great to hear, because when me and Andy created created Coach Logic 8 years ago now. It was out of frustration. We were getting to the end of our playing playing hobbies, and we were starting to realise through coaching that we didn't know a lot as players, and we'd love to have had the knowledge we were starting to get now as coaches, and be able to then still have the physical ability to go and execute that on the pitch. And it sounds like you're definitely helping the players understand the game from that kind of coach's perspective, which we don't know now, but you're hoping, I guess, in February, fingers crossed, when you get games, that you'll start to see some of that transfer, maybe from and there's a lot of time in rugby to discuss and to reset and to reorganize and to understand momentum changes and to pick the right line out next ball. There's a lot of downtime. Hopefully you'll start to see maybe some of the lessons they've learned over the last few months in action.
Yeah, definitely. I think on the whole, I actually think this group of players probably more tactically astute because of some of the video footage. I think sometimes it's if you're playing games and reviewing your own games, you get often bogged down in kind of some of the technical things, because actually what you see in if there's an error or you can see the try, certainly at academy level or schoolboy level, it might be down to a missed tackle, so you get bogged down in that technical detail when actually might have missed a tackle, but actually the defensive system was nowhere. So I think but it's been quite good to not get bogged down in some of that technical pieces and errors and individual stuff in the past few months, and actually look more at the game tactically and from a wider lens.
Yeah, it's cool. And then last kind of question on this is, although it's not been great, COVID, for all sorts of reasons, but I think we've all taken bits that we'll maybe continue with, even though we've been forced into doing these things, certain things in our coaching practice. What are the kind of things that you've learned or had to been forced to do through COVID that you actually think, actually, this is a better way to do things, and I'll continue doing this when we get back to proper rugby and after the COVID situation?
I definitely think the inability to sit in a room in front of a screen has been brilliant. Actually, because so what we've done really around training is, obviously you can't have meetings, and when you stood around in a group telling everyone to keep away from each other, you can't have a long meeting. You can't really discuss anything particularly. So we've moved all our meetings or our content sort of online before sessions. So we'll prime information, or give guys challenges to prime a lot of the information for training, maybe a day or two beforehand. I think that does two things. One, it gives players real ownership of that, and it gives players time to watch it and rewatch it and ask questions and bring questions to training. So that's been really interesting. We're not handing out sheets of paper. We're not trying to draw messy things on whiteboards. We just a PowerPoint and a video clip can put the point across. So those players can then digest it in the time they need on their own phones, without having to have the pressure of, right, we've got a meeting 10 minutes before training, this is how we're setting up for a kickoff, this is a clip of it, right, we're going to go and do it. And they've probably got a million other things to think about. They've left their gum shield in the changing rooms, they're wearing the wrong socks, and and they want to get the shoulder strapped in that time. So it's taken away all of that stuff, but actually given the players or that organisation of that has given the players a lot of time or ownership to do that. So we've used the players to prime the session quite a lot. So last week they did the session review. So basically me and Greg just gave them the session plan. So look, these were the objectives of the session. Can six players say, look, can you just go and clip out if if that worked or didn't, or a good example of that. Got them on a Zoom, recorded the Zoom, played through the clips, the voice over the session and the review, put it back on Coach Logic, and there we go. In 10 minutes, there's a 10-minute sort of video of 6 of us just reviewing the session that went out to the wall.
Yeah.
And then that's what everyone saw the day before, or the day kind of, that's the session review and prime stuff for the next session. So things like that just we would definitely continue to do, because they've just been so economical, really. But also I think much better learning.
It's great to see that the players have been involved in that. I think I get frustrated a little bit sometimes about the Gen Z chat around them having a short attention span, so therefore we just need to make things smaller for them. Where actually the great things about Gen Z is their ability to discover stuff for themselves. They're great content creators. They want to be involved. Like they want to. They're used to finding information for themselves and contributing. And I think you guys are really taking advantage of those positive attributes, rather than thinking we need to make something look amazing for them, or we need to make something really small so they can pay attention for a long period of time because it's amazing, or grab their attention when you can.
Yeah, I think the attention span is just because they've got lots going on, but then they can cope with that. Like we recognise, and we've seen not and you'll have some of the data on this, but you know, I just like putting one clip out, a real divisive clip, or you know, kind of what do we think about this?
Yeah.
And just letting them roll with it. And some will put what you know, they'll always get the stock answers of they'll describe the clip. Okay. Yeah. So what about it? And so just try, you know, and if we get 20 responses, you know, leave it for an hour, and you know, it fizzles out after a little while. If we get 20 responses, great. If we get 50, 80, brilliant. And sometimes, you know, and just we don't put a thing, you know, limit on that. You have to respond, or you have to reply. It's just actually it comes upon the phone. They'll have, you know, and they have 5 minutes, and they'll have a look at it, and they'll go do something else, and they'll come back to it. And that's I think that's more that the attention span isn't that they've not got time or attention for it, that they'll have 5 minutes for it.
Yeah.
But in amongst them doing another 20 things in the next hour. So it's not that they haven't got the attention or the time for it. It's just it's that, and then I'll do something else, and then look at Twitter, and then they'll play a game, and they'll come back to it. So we found that they'll keep coming back to clips and things, but they won't sit there for an hour, you know, just looking at Coach Logic. They dip in and out of it, and that's absolutely fine though. They're still getting the learning, they're still engaging. They're just doing it in their own way.
On demand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just takes us to keep pestering them with clips, but then they're pretty good at doing that themselves. So you know, they'll constantly, you know, put things on us and ask us questions of what do we think, or so that's really good as well.
Nice one. Thanks very much, Dave, for your time. I know you're busy, but yeah, it's been great to watch you guys more than cope. Actually, bring some really cool new thinking into the organisation during this time. I'm pretty sure you're going to smash it next year once we get the go ahead, because you've got some pretty talented players there, from what I can tell from their interaction, and they're not.
Yeah,
See how that translates.
Can't play rugby, but they're great. Yeah.
You're producing the next generation of coaches and commentators, at least.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, thanks again, mate, and have a great Christmas, and
and you.
See you in the new year, I'm sure.
Yeah, great. Cheers, Mark. Take care.